Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. Watch the ThunderCast on YouTube and listen to the ThunderCast anywhere you like to listen to podcasts. Primarily, you can find us really easy on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but we're all over the place too, man. You can't really miss us. Once you spot the logo, you know you're in the right place listening to the ThunderCast. Russ, it is the culmination of the 2025 position group breakdown series. One of my favorite times of the year. I love doing this series each and every single season. So much fun sharing our knowledge and sharing our research with the Herd fan base. And we're going to wrap this bad boy up with always the hottest position that everybody wants to know about. We're talking quarterbacks tonight, baby. And, man, we got some talented dudes to talk about tonight. I'm ready to get into all of it. You got any words before we get this sponsor head out of the way and get into some quarterbacks?
Yeah, so we've got a transfer, actually two transfers coming in that people are expecting to start, and then there is a second generation quarterback that comes from a Herd brother alumnus that played at Marshall in the 90s. Is it 2024 or is it 2025? It's eerily similar, because we had this with Cole Pennington, of course, being Chad's son last year, and we've got Ja'Kai Long being Gerald Long's son this year, and a couple of transfers that were brought in. It's not the same. It's just, that struck me while we were doing this, that it's just similar.
Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, last year we actually had two legacy quarterbacks on the roster, and we're continuing because Ja'Kai decided to remain, and it looks like if you're watching any of those highlight videos coming out of practice and stuff, it really looks like the future of the Herd is on the field right now. But I want to talk about it, man. Enough foreshadowing and all that good stuff. Give me a word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
All right, man. It's got to be the most questioned, the most talked about, the most, wondered about position for the 2025 Marshall University Thundering Herd football team, and it's quarterback. Just like is the story with most every other position, gutted by the portal, but boy, they hit the portal hard and did pretty well. The cupboard is by far is far from being bare. There is a lot of talent going to be taking snaps in Huntington this year, and a brand new offense to work around with it. It's going to be really, really fun in Huntington, West Virginia. So let's talk some quarterbacks, man. Coached by offensive coordinator Rod Smith, also does double duty as the quarterback's coach. You mentioned a returning quarterback, Ja'Kai Long. Well, there were two that were holdovers from 2024. Ja'Kai Long, the 6'2", 205-pound redshirt freshman from Hurricane, West Virginia, and Chase Massey, the 6'2", 173-pound redshirt freshman from Winfield, West Virginia. A couple of in-state guys sticking with the Herd. Not surprising in the least. Let's pause real quick, and I don't want to get too far into our discussion, but when you usually, we've got 6 on the roster. 6 is a fairly big number for quarterbacks, and a third of those stuck with the program. I'm not sure a third of any other position group stuck with the program like quarterbacks did. So probably the least surprising thing, it's in-state guys that stuck around. That's got to say something to you, right?
Yeah. And the one thing that also, just for anybody that may be confused, I'm a little bit too, Herd Zone still lists Chase Massey on their roster as a quarterback, But what came out that was on social media, at the start of fall camp, that was released, showed the roster having Chase Massey listed as a wide receiver, not QB and wide receiver.
Okay.
It's just that, in two different places from them, he was listed. So I'm going to do some assuming. I'm going to throw on my big assuming hat. But I think that Chase Massey is probably going to be running QB stuff, especially scout team practice, things like that. But he's probably also looking to do some of that stuff when the others are doing that. He's going to be out there as wide receiver. Just gives a lot of flexibility there on your depth, that he can still be there as quarterback, but probably not amongst the starting three on your depth chart. So that's just my guess.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. Let's cut right to it. This is a 3-man race that we're primarily going to be talking about. I think everybody knows that. But when you've only got 6 guys on the roster, we're going to talk about all 6 guys. It's only the right thing to do. So let's go to the portal out, and you're going to recognize a lot of names here. Colin Parachek, portals out. Aiden Karsh, portals out. Stone Earl and Braylon Braxton, both portal out. Of course, you mentioned Cole Pennington, and Courtney Davis was the last to portal out. Now, a lot of guys that took a lot of snaps for Marshall University in 2024, a conference championship team. The portal out portion of that hurt pretty bad, especially, when I don't know if it was really surprising to see Stone Earl or Braylon Braxton leave. I figured that Braxton was probably going to follow Huff once we knew Huff was leaving. And when, I'd say Stone Earl just was looking for a place to play. He wanted to play quarterback. He came here and started for a few games. And, it's like, well, let me go somewhere that fits the system, because I don't think this Rod Smith offense fits his skill set nearly as well as it would have, say, Braylon Braxton. Sure. I think the one that hurt the most, though, is Cole Pennington. People wanted to see Cole finish his career at Marshall, but let's face it, the kid wants to play football. This offense doesn't really fit his skill set. So you can't blame him for hitting the portal and looking for an opportunity. Where you do start to get really, really happy is talking about the portal in. A trio of guys come with Tony Gibson in his first year, of course, led by Carlos Del Rio Wilson, the 6'2", 219-pound redshirt junior from Syracuse via the University of Florida. So this will be Mr. Del Rio Wilson's third stop in his redshirt junior year. Then follows with Zion Turner, 6'1", 214-pound redshirt junior, comes over with Rod Smith from Jacksonville State, but Herd fans will remember him as a freshman starter for UConn back in 2022 in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. The Herd was able to get the win in that one. He was pretty good as a true freshman, and he was thrust into action in the second game of the year. We'll talk about all that, but he had a pretty meaningful freshman year and then fighting for playing time ever since. Now finds his way in Huntington, where he's doing just that once again. Then the last one we're going to talk about in the portal in is Jack Cloherty, the 5'11", 176-pound junior that comes to us from South Dakota. And then one high school recruit, and boy, was it a good one, in the state of West Virginia, quarterback Coy Fagan, the 6'1", 178-pound true freshman from Martinsburg High School, West Virginia high school powerhouse. Martinsburg was the top quarterback in the class last year in West Virginia. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year, the Metro News Player of the Year, the Kennedy Award winner, 4,100 plus total yards last year, 2,264 yards passing, 1,848 yards rushing, 61 total touchdowns, 33 through the air and 28 on the ground. That's not career numbers. That's senior season numbers for Coy Fagan, and he chooses to come to Huntington and play for the Herd. Man, between Ja'Kai Long and Coy Fagan, there is a seriously stellar future at quarterback for Marshall University. Russ, let's stop right there. Let's talk about the portal. Let's talk about the high school recruit, Mr. Fagan, and what you think the status of the overall room feels like to you now.
I think it's deep. We're going to get into this and everything, but we didn't bring in one guy and put all of our eggs in that basket. It seems like that we have brought in levels, from the high school ranks. You already got Jakai here. So, you've got, it just seems like, bring in somebody that's upperclassman, then you got somebody that's already been in the system, and then bring somebody in from high school. It's levels. And that's what I mean with deep on that. We're not one of those schools that just brought in one guy that is obviously going to be the starter. And if he gets injured, then, what do we do?
Right.
So it looks like we have restocked the cupboard here in the quarterback room.
Well, you're right. You have absolutely restocked the cupboard, and I think you might be deeper than you were last year. Let's face it, it took last year's coaching staff a third of the season nearly to figure out who they wanted to start at quarterback. Mm-hmm. And then it finally worked out. It proved that Braylon Braxton was the guy that needed the keys to the car to drive this offense. But it became apparent when others were doing duty that the offense was not as efficient when Braxton wasn't on the field in the beginning. And you played Virginia Tech, you played Ohio State. I get that. That's going to be tough. I get that. But there were games that they should have been more efficient than they were. And I feel like there's a number of guys that are on this year's roster that are going to be able to run this Rod Smith offense better than what one guy was able to run the offense last year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it also seems like these quarterbacks 100% fit the mold of what this offense is. I don't know that you could say that last year. We seem to have more variation on our top 4 or 5 quarterbacks, what they brought to the table. But all of these guys seem like they could be not mirror images of each other, but you know what I'm saying, a lot closer than what we had last year. More, he's a pocket passer. He's more of a downfield guy. He's a threat to run. And I'm even talking about Stone Earl was a threat to run too, but it just seemed like there was like a lot of variance last year, when now you just say, hey, I think if we had to go with this guy, he's a very good fit for this offense. Nothing will have to change,
Well, I think these guys absolutely had an archetype of quarterback that they wanted. They wanted dual threat guys, being able to run this offense. And you have to have it. I mean, if you're predicated on the run the way this one is predicated on the run, you have to have a quarterback that can freaking run, right? And Carlos Del Rio Wilson, Zion Turner, and Jaquai Long can all do that. They all look great doing that. They can all also pass efficiently and effectively. So you've got 3 guys that are going to be able to run this offense no matter who's in there. Now, will it be as smooth and as well-oiled no matter who's in there? Probably not, because one guy by default is going to get the majority of snaps all the time. So you're going to see a little bit of slowdown in the offense, but what you're not going to have to do is throw out half of the damn playbook whenever you sub a quarterback in. And that means something, So let's talk about the depth chart. And usually we do projected starters and all this kind of. You got one guy that can start. So let's do it in a depth chart scenario. Who is your QB1 right now?
As of right now, I got Carlos Del Rio Wilson. I think he separated in spring ball and kind of stood out a little bit. He's had the most reps with the ones, as I understand, in spring and going into the fall and everything. That's who I got right now.
Yeah, I got Carlos Del Rio Wilson as my QB1 as well. 6'2", 219, the redshirt junior again from Syracuse. Injured all of 2024. So this is another one of those show me kind of years for him and for me as a fan. No game action whatsoever last year. 14 games and 2 starts, though, the year before in 23. Career stats there in Syracuse, 48 out of 102 for 624 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also 148 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. Numbers, of course, don't blow you away, but you are also competing for time against other quarterbacks. And then, well, how are you going to pump those numbers up when you're injured all of 2024? It's not going to happen. It looks like a great opportunity in this system for him to have a monster year. So who is your QB2?
Jakai Long. I think that he has come on strong here in the fall camp, and he's getting more time with the ones and the twos, and I think that he's taking that leap. Coach even said, he's the future. I mean, he said that down at Sunbelt Conference Media Days, and I think that he has impressed. He's improved, and right now, I think that he's your number 2 on the depth chart.
Not surprisingly, my number 2 is quarterback Jaquai Long. I think he is making those strides from just the spring game to now. That little window of time, he has developed phenomenally, and I think that has to do with more familiarity and comfortability in the system. The game, he even said it. The game is slowing down for him, and that's a huge factor. A lot of times when we talk about that freshman to sophomore leap, which is not what we're talking about here with Jaquai Long, we're not talking about that. What I'm saying is that is a vital point of that big leap that we saw for Rakeem Cato. We always talk about Rakeem Cato and his meteoric rise from freshman to sophomore, that huge developmental leap. Vital to that is the slowing down of the game so that you are more comfortable in that pocket and are able to execute plays the way you need to. And just from April to now, and we still have a couple of weeks of practice left, he looks almost like a different quarterback. He's that comfortable in this system. Again, the 6'2", 205-pound redshirt freshman from Hurricane, he's just continued to impress, man. Didn't see any action last year for the Herd. So if and when he does see game action, it will be his first career game action for the Herd. But, man, he's just really, really making it hard not to pay attention to him right now.
It would not shock me for him to get the keys sometime this season and for him to pass Carlos Del Rio Wilson. Nothing against Carlos, everything for Jaquai. And that's what you want. You want to have that competition. I'm not saying a switch back and forth each week competition. I'm saying that you want all the other quarterbacks pressuring with their good play the person in front of them, which is supposed to make them play even better, and then you're going to put the one that's performing the best on the field. And I could really see the future getting turned over to Jaquai at some point in this season.
I wish I'd have prepared, the clip and I could just play it right now, but there was nobody really higher on the Jaquai Long last year moving into this year than we were. And we were talking about that. It was like, oh, don't forget about this guy that's also on the roster when we're talking about these big transfers coming in.
Yeah.
There's a kid that's still on the roster. If you guys remember, we were talking about that. I was driving that ball hard back in the spring.
We were so pumped when we signed him out of high school. You and I were, and we talked about that. And, him being local, him being a second generation is just icing on the cake because, when he was not local and he was in Ohio earlier in his high school career, we were hoping that he would come here then. It had nothing to do with him playing, 45 minutes down the road, 30 minutes down the road, whatever.
I wanted a damn good quarterback.
That's right. That's right. And he fits the bill. And, it's icing on the cake, as I said, that he just happens to be Gerald Long's son.
Yeah, shout out Gerald. Appreciate the genes. You know what I mean? Now, win some more games for the Herd in a new era. And, we're going to say this again. It seems like the vibe. I got in a little, I guess, I don't want to call it an altercation, but, here the past week or so, we've been doing it's 90s vibes. That's what it feels like. It feels like the 90s vibes around the 2025 Herd again. And I want to expound on that just for a second before we get to that QB3. I got into a little bit of I had to set the record straight. Somebody thought that we were comparing this team to teams of the 90s. It has nothing to do with the team. It's fan vibes. It feels like the Herd belongs to us all again. And when that mood happens, the Joan becomes what the Joan used to be. And it's been edging that way for the past couple of years. We've won a lot of games at home in the past couple of years. But until you can get back to where you don't just walk into Joan C. Edwards Stadium and expect to win a game as an opponent, then we've still got work to do. But right now, it feels like we're not just walking and climbing, we're sprinting to that right now. The fan vibes are like they were in the 90s, and that's what this whole 90s vibes thing is all about. We want the herd to be ours again. We want the environment to be like that again. We want those players to be like that, the whole nine. And it just feels like that's where we're headed. How about QB3, man?
QB3 for me is Zion Turner. He is familiar with that offense coming from Rod Smith's Jacksonville State team. He was pressuring, and I think continues to pressure, Carlos Del Rio Wilson, and now Ja'Kai Long. I think, he's shown some really good stuff in the spring, and I think that he's a threat on the ground. He's a threat to throw. I think he's a very solid number 3 right now, and the only reason he's not 2 is because Ja'Kai has just taken his game up to the next level.
Yeah, if they were even, he would be 2 because he's started games in college. He's got statistics in college. He comes with Coach Rod Smith from Jack State, where they were a conference champion last year. So there's a championship mindset and pedigree there with him. Zion has just had a really kind of up and down career, but it doesn't have a whole lot to do with him. Because I want to get into his story. Again, the 6'1", 214-pound redshirt junior from Jacksonville State via UConn. I talked about earlier that he started as a freshman. Well, their starter in UConn went down in the first game, or maybe early in the second game. But anyway, he was the starter in the second game. So I think it was the first game.
It was the first game, and I think it was like the first series of the first game.
It was early. Yeah. So for all intents and purposes, he was the starter for the entire season. He played all 13 games in 2022 with 12 starts. And in that season where they faced the Herd in the Myrtle Beach Bowl, he went 149 out of 258 for 1,407 yards, 9 total touchdowns through the air, and 10 interceptions. Gained 262 yards on the ground with another touchdown. But true freshman, you got to remember that. True freshman thrust into action. He was not expected to contribute probably much at all. They were looking up if UConn was going to have any type of mop-up duty maybe during that year. He would get some reps, or if they were getting blown out, he might get some reps. But he was thrust into action and rose to the occasion, led him to a 6-6 record, which is pretty respectable for a UConn team anyway, I would think, and much less one led by a true freshman. It took them to a bowl game. They came up short in that one thanks to, Cam Fancher and the Herd and Devin Miller getting the touchdown in that one. And, Corey Gamage had a touchdown, I believe, and an interception in that game. That was a cool game. One game, though, he appeared in 2024, because you've talked about it how many times, that Jacksonville State rushing attack, that offense was just, how are you going to take the quarterback off the field? They were just lighting it. You're not going to take the guy off the field. He's smoking hot all game, every game. So it's just been an up and down career for Zion Turner. It has nothing to do with a lack of talent. The kid is unbelievably talented. He is pressuring and will continue to pressure the 2 and 1 for playing time. And if he gets it, he'll damn sure deserve it, because that means he had elevated his game. His skill set is matching. He might just have the hot hand. And we've got a good problem. Last year we had an okay problem. We had a really good starter, and then we had some guys that could be serviceable in spots. This year, I think we've got 3 guys that can be way more than serviceable in every spot. So this is an intriguing problem to have. I do think it's Del Rio Wilson's job to lose. I think Ja'Kai Long is pushing and may overtake him at some point, especially if he gets injured and Ja'Kai just gets a hot hand, because at that point, you're not going to take a hot hand off the field.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. You go ahead. I thought you were finished.
That was good enough. The only other point I was going to make is that Zion Turner, if also thrust into action again or earning playing time again, is going to be able to run this offense effectively, because he's from this offense. So it's a really good problem to have right now.
Well, let's look at this depth chart compared to our out-of-conference schedule, which just happens to be our first 4 games. That's not always the case, but it is this season. You've got Georgia number 1. This is a way early. We'll talk more about this when we do a preview, but I fully expect to see more than one quarterback there.
Yeah.
Then you've got Missouri State and EKU at home. I'm going to lump those 2 together. Definitely at EKU or EKU here, but that game. I definitely see us having more than one quarterback, possibly all three. And again, once it gets closer to game time, we talk specifically about that game.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. The game in the middle, Missouri State, I could see that being 2 as well. And I don't necessarily think that would be over some sort of QB battle. It's just the way some of those early games go. As you know, in late in the game, you get a different quarterback in there. So I think we could see in these first 4 games all 3 of these quarterbacks. Talking about this depth chart, I think it's very likely that we see all 3 of them. And you could have somebody come in and just absolutely makes it to where you cannot take the ball out of their hand for the rest of the season until something happens.
Yeah.
So great problem to have with 3 players on your depth chart.
Yeah, very unique problem to have. We haven't had that in a while. We've always, for quite a while, you've had a bona fide starter and a pretty decent to serviceable backup. And then after that, it was like, I hope we don't have to get into QB3, an emergency situation. But when you talk about the out of conference, you should see more than one quarterback easily in those first 3 games.
Yes.
Unless you happen to be in a nail-biting situation to where you're either neck and neck with Georgia for some reason, or you're neck and neck with Missouri State for some reason. And then in which case you would hope that, well, I mean, I don't know. If you're neck and neck with Missouri State, you may have already had to make a quarterback change. I don't know. No shade to them. I'm just saying.
Plus, they're moving up. They're moving up from FCS.
Maybe I should have said Eastern Kentucky. Maybe I should have said them. I don't know.
Well, I mean, both of those. That's kind of why I lumped them together. I'm not saying they're even on the same level, but this is Missouri State's second game at FBS level when they play us, and the first one's going to be at USC in Los Angeles. So, no shade at them. They could come to the Joan and beat us.
Yeah,
we're not throwing any shade whatsoever. It's just expectations of those first 3 games would be that they are not going to be like our conference games where you're probably going to have someone starting and finishing the game unless it's just totally out of hand.
Correct. And the other point that you have to make in that is, what if your number 2 and number 3 are so neck and neck that they need the out of conference game experience to see who gets to be number 2 going into the SBC conference slate? So,
yeah, because your number 2 is just as important as your number 1, because you're one play away from having to put that person in. And you definitely want to know if the person you're putting in should be second on your depth chart or third on your depth chart, because you want the person that is second that is above that other person. So you're right. That practice time right now in camp is crucial, but also these games that are early in the schedule that you can play them and see, they are crucial as well.
Yeah. So speaking of all that, let's flip the page a little bit here. Let's talk about strengths and weaknesses of this overall room. I've got 3 and 3. What do you got?
I got 3 and 4. So 3 strengths. I'm going to start off. My first strength for the quarterback room is the running back room. And I think you know exactly what I'm going to say. We have 4 to 5 studs in our running back room. This is going to be a heavy run-first offense that's already been said by the coaches. We are speculating. They haven't said any kind of a mix, and they're not going to probably game plan and say, well, we have to run 65% of our plays have to be rushing and 35 passing. They're going to go as the game dictates, but they are going to be heavy on the run. And I expect that the running backs are going to take a lot of the pressure off of the quarterbacks in this offense by doing a lot of that heavy lifting. So it is an absolute strength for me that the running back room is so deep, so capable, and Rod Smith's offense is going to feature them to the point where that is a strength for the quarterback. We're not expecting somebody to come in here and throw 5,000 yards, 70 passes a game.
No, that is not what I'm expecting. And as a matter of fact, you know how I do these. My number 1 strength is always my number 1 overall strength. The other 2 or 3 or however many I have, I just kind of write down. Number 3 strength for me was the running back room. And you're absolutely dead to rights correct. It's like it's filled with studs. They're going to garner so much attention from defenders that you have to respect what any one of them can do. And I've got to be really apologetic. When we did our running back room episode, we didn't hardly talk about Antoine Roberts at all.
Yeah.
Fresh off of an ACL injury from last year, had a phenomenal practice a couple of days ago and really lit it up. So just another weapon that goes into that room that not even we were talking about. So my bad, Antoine. We know you can play ball. It's just that we didn't know what we had because you were severely injured last year.
Yeah, coming off an injury like that, and I know so was Justin Williams Thomas, but his was, I believe, earlier and his rehab further along. That's just kind of the thing. Is you're like, well, he's probably going to take a while before he gets back into the mix. Well, he's proving that is not the case. He's ready now. He's ready now.
So our bad. We'll make it up to you, I'm sure. But that was my number 3 strength too, the running back room. It's just going to take up so much attention from these defenders. It's liable to leave some really looser coverages on these wide receivers and or some really big running holes for those quarterbacks to really exploit. It's a strength that you just cannot pay attention to because it's ever present. What do you got for number 2?
Number 2 feeds off what you just said, but also my first one, the dual threat ability on the QB depth chart. And it's not just one of them. It's not just 2 of them. The top 3 that we think are in the mix, all 3 of them have that ability to tuck it and run. I think not only the speed and the athleticism, but the knowledge of when to do so. Especially Del Rio Wilson and Zion Turner in the spring game showed that already. Ja'Kai Long didn't get to show that as much, but again, remember that entire time, except for one series, he was playing with the 3s. I don't think that they wanted him to do as much of that, so we didn't get to see as much of that. But you have 3 athletic guys that are going to be able to piggyback off of the rushing game, and they are going to have those running lanes open. You're going to see a lot of RPO, and you'll be able to see them on designed runs that they're going to take, and that is going to take off the pressure from them as quarterbacks.
My number 1 overall strength in all of this for the quarterback room is dual threat depth. It's undeniable, and it's right there. 1, 2, 3 guys, all built equally the same, between 6'1" and 6'2", between 205 and 219. Yeah, Ja'Kai's tipping the scales at 205. He's a redshirt freshman. These other guys are 2 years older than him. So talk to me in 2 years when he's also 220. So it's just a matter of time. You're looking into the future right now and seeing what you have and what you will have in a couple of years down the road. The dual threat depth is off the charts this year. And this offense is so unique that I think it like I said before, they had an archetype of quarterback that they wanted to get. And they probably had some guys that they coveted, and they landed some of those guys to come in and do exactly what they were built to do in this offense. Now, last year, we called Daigie's offense the modified air raid. Some people were trying to call it the air run, right? Well, I heard in the practice tape, in one of the practice interviews, that it was called the run raid, this offense. And I love that. I think that's really, really cool. So this run raid offense is going to be predicated on having a really killer dual threat quarterback, and we've got 3 of them. Got to be the biggest strength in the room. What's your number 3?
Number 3 is surprise ability to throw, but it's no surprise to me and it's no surprise to you. We're talking about surprising the other team, because we are going to be so rush heavy with these running backs that we can just say, hey, we got 5 of them. Let's just keep running someone fresh out there. They're going to expect to have them running down their throats. They're going to expect to have these design QB runs, the RPOs, and maybe mix in some option and some reverses from the wide receivers and jet sweeps and all that stuff that we've got 3 guys that can throw it right over the top. So you cheat up, and then all of a sudden there's the surprise, not to us, but to you when you are looking up at the ball, sailing over the top for a touchdown.
Yeah, if you look at the scouting report from Del Rio Wilson when he came out of high school, it was noted in that report that he had a very quick release and he was very accurate. And this is a high school prospect going into college, right? He was projected coming out of high school to be a power league starter, not just a power league quarterback, but a power league starter. Okay, so damn right the passability is there. And we know that these guys aren't going to be asked to nail that deep ball all game long. This isn't an air raid offense.
Yeah.
This offense is predicated on short to mid-range throws with taking chances over the top when they're there. Now, can all these guys make every single throw that every quarterback needs to be able to make to, like, at the next level? I don't know, but I don't think they're going to be asked to do that. So what they are going to be asked to do, they do really well. And we saw quarterbacks in recent years really, really struggle in that mid-range pass game, always throwing balls high, sailing balls, just not enough zip on it. And if you're watching any of the practice tape, you're not seeing that out of these guys. You're seeing very accurate balls thrown. You're seeing a lot of zip on passes. You're seeing quick releases to get the ball out of your hand to nullify that pass rush. These are all things that will just demoralize a defense, right? And then when you do think, all right, we got to get after this quarterback. We got to send an extra man. We got to do whatever we got to do. You pick up the you pick up the blitz, you pick up the whatever, and looky here. Now he's wide open for nobody to touch him within how many yards. It's just green grass ahead. So the passability is there, and that leads right into my third strength, which is the uber creative offense that these guys get to play in. I mean, if I were a insanely talented dual threat quarterback, of course, this is very wishful thinking. But if that is who I was, I would want to be positioned to play in an offense like this one because it just looks so freaking fun. It's like
It's explosive.
This is as close to like backyard pickup football that organized high-level Division I football can be. It's so fun and so creative, and there's so much you can do with it. But at the same time, it's absolutely lethal when executed properly. I mean, we see you can watch highlight tapes from Jack State last year. And when it's executed, man, it looks fun. And I bet those fans in the stands down there had a lot of fun last season. And I hope a hell of a lot of that fun came north to Huntington, West Virginia, and we get to see it with hopefully a higher caliber of athlete running that offense. Easily a huge strength is the creativity behind this offense and the minds that are in these rooms with these guys. You want to flip the script now and talk about some weaknesses? Let's do it.
I've got 4. My number 1 is that there are very little experience out of these 3 in games. And when they were playing, nothing amazing, just stat-wise, leaps out at you that just says, hey, this is QB1. You can look at what he did here, and he's head and shoulders ready to be that guy. And I think that's what has some people a little more scared, or some people a little more, I don't know what to expect.
Sure.
Because when you look at this, I'll just bring it up real quick here. Carlos Del Rio Wilson, he's got stats in 22 and 23. You mentioned he was hurt all last year in 24. But he's got 4 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and somewhere below 50% in completion percentage. None of that leaps out and says, hey, right there, you can just point to his success, and it doesn't. And Zion Turner, he basically had the last 2 years, he's only had 6 attempts. Before that, 149 out of 258. It was 57.8% completion percentage, 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns, 10 interceptions at UConn. True freshman, wasn't expected to play, was expected to redshirt, got thrust into it. We tacked on some of those interceptions to tip him over there to that negative mark. But when all's said and done, you can't point to that and say, right there, you can look and see he's thrown for 68%. He's, got more touchdowns. He doesn't throw many interceptions. And then Ja'Kai Long doesn't have a snap.
Yeah.
So there is no real success stat-wise. So for me, that's a weakness because of the inexperience to look at.
Well, not only is it a weakness, it is the number 1 overall glaring weakness within the group. It is the lack of playing time amongst the top 3 quarterbacks. You went a more of a longer duration, but I'm trying to keep it shorter, just in 2024, because Zion Turner had some stats in 2022. And if that's all you were going off of, he would be, you'd be your quarterback 1 now, wouldn't he?
Right.
But we've got him at 3 fighting for that number 2 spot and pushing for that number 1 spot. but you've got one game appearance between three quarterbacks all of last season. And if
with one pass attempt out of the three of them.
And if that isn't worrisome to you, then, well, I'd love to have some of whatever it is you're drinking, because it worries me too. But I just know what I've been watching from the practice film. And I know that, okay, there's no rust.
Right.
You know, and in Jakai's case, it was, well, you were redshirting, right? Yeah. You were not going to play.
That's right.
But in Zion's case, he was quarterback 2 on the depth chart, and just was not. They were not going to take the hot hand off the field. And in Carlos Del Rio's cases, he was injured. So yeah, you can't just cast that aside. But one game in all of 2024 between your top 3 quarterbacks scares the living crap out of me. Luckily, I've been watching the practice films. It makes me feel a little bit better knowing that, okay, that's just game. There's still plenty of practices going on. These guys have done a great job in the offseason meshing with new weapons. And honestly, I don't really know that it would have mattered if these guys had, say, 10, 12 games between them, because they're all on completely new teams with all new linemen, all new receivers, all new everything. So other than, being in shape constantly, which you're still doing to a certain degree, even if you're injured, it's still going to be all new. What the benefit is, you can say, if there is a benefit to that, is their bodies didn't take a year of punishment last year, of in-game punishment last year. So it's still a glaring weakness. What's your number 2?
Number 2 is we play Georgia right out of the gate. And you're going to be going up against probably the best defensive line that you're going to face, the best linebacking crew, arguably, that you're going to face, and the best defensive backs that you're arguably going to face all year long. They're going to be bigger, stronger, faster than anyone else as a unit that you're going to face. So that is your trial by fire that you get to come. There's no warm-ups. You've got your practices and everything, but your very first game is going to be on the road in front of a packed SEC fan base. You're going to have to go up against the best talent that you're going to face all year long. And, we're talking about quarterbacks here. Most of them, it doesn't matter. They just shake it off and they go on to the next one and all that. But you really don't want to have injuries. You really don't want to have someone have that mental block of, well, I went up against this and look what I did and they picked me off or whatever. There's just no warm up to go into that. You're just immediately right out of the gate thrust into it. And I think that is a little bit of a concern and a weakness for these inexperienced quarterbacks.
Well, I mean, it should be. This is a national title contending team, and they're going to do nothing all game long except pin their ears back and come after you, because they're going to want to put on a show, in front of their home crowd, in front of probably undoubtedly who they're viewing as a vastly inferior opponent. Okay. It is what it is. I can't control that, but what I can control is, I can't think of the word just escaped me, but it's like hedging my excitement level. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to know at the Georgia game who we have unless they come out there and just go nuts and shock the freaking world, because that would shock the freaking world, believe me. But I'm trying to hedge my excitement until we get a couple of games in before I start to form an opinion, before I start to go, all right, man, this is really not working, or wow, this is really working better than I thought. Here's my number 2 weakness. It's a lack of established playmakers in the pass catching side of things, aside from Toby Payne. It leaves me wondering where the chemistry lies, right? Because these guys are all new. Like, all the top rushers left our team last year. All of our top pass catchers left our team last year, with the exception of Toby Payne. So you've got one offensive pass catching weapon that returns. And I just don't know right now, like, one play on being shown on a video from a practice video doesn't tell me if those two guys actually have chemistry or if they just happen to make a really kick-ass play that they posted to social media. So the overall lack of an established playmaker that we are familiar with as fans, not that there's not one on the roster. I'm saying, like, we as fans aren't familiar with any of them because none of them have played for us aside from Toby Payne. It just leaves me wondering how good the chemistry is, as we talked about the depth in the wide receiver room, the depth in the running back room, who's got the best chemistry with what, right? Because you see this all the time. If a quarterback gets injured, they put the backup in or they put the third stringer in. All of a sudden, some receivers that generally aren't getting much play are now putting up stats because, well, that's who that guy's throwing to in practice. That's where that chemistry is. So from the fact that we don't know who's playing well with who yet, it just causes concern for me, it leads me to think that this could be a potential weakness. Of course, we know there are bonds being made, and some guys are playing better with other receivers and vice versa. But until we see it, I ain't got no choice but to say it's a weakness because I can't say it's a strength. I mean, who the hell would say, oh, we don't know who we got and who's playing great with who, but that's the strength of the unit, right? It has to be a weakness.
Number 3 for me is the same. It's everything is new. And, we brought in all of our new receiving core. We brought in all of our new quarterbacks. No matter who we throw out there, it's going to be new. And we brought in a lot of new offensive line, so your passing game and even catching the ball out of the backfield, so every single level, tight ends, running backs, and all, you've got almost everything new. And on top of that, it's a brand new system. Now, I think they've had plenty of time to implement that, but just like you, I've not seen it. So right now, it's an unknown. It's exactly what we brought up as a weakness in every other position group that we've done is it's the unknown. We haven't seen it on the field. We've seen it in practice. We've heard about it, and we just do not know. So that has to be a weakness. I'm with you.
Yeah. My third weakness, and I'm just going to say it, and then I'll let you close out the whole segment since you have another, is that it's an all-new offensive line. Outside of Jalen Slappy returning, but he didn't play with any of these quarterbacks, right? This is a stalwart on our offensive line, and we think that we have another contributor from last year, like Shamarcus Adams,
Tariq
Montgomery. Those 3 guys specifically that played ball for us last year quite a bit. But they didn't play a lot of ball together on that same offensive line. And none of them played with any of these quarterbacks except for maybe Jaquan Long in practice a little bit. That's a huge factor. Maybe affecting no one greater than the quarterback. So we patchworked a line together last year through the portal, and it worked out. It worked out really well. And we patchworked together a line this year out of the portal, mostly, about 60-ish% out of the portal, we think. But new quarterbacks, new offense, and a new offensive line, that's a scary trio, right? And any one of those fails and the whole offense kind of crumbles. Now, I don't think that's going to happen necessarily. It's not going to crumble. But again, until I see which 5 on the O-line are playing the best together, couple that with which quarterback is playing the best with those 5 offensive linemen, and then triple that up with which quarterback is executing the offense the best with those 5 offensive linemen, that's a lot. That's a lot to get right, and you got to do it against Georgia in game 1. So, big weakness.
Throw in Eric Meeks there. He only had that one start last year.
Well, but I think of him more as a kick returner anyway.
He's by far the highest rated returner that we have. But my number 4 weakness is we've got high efficiency stats to replace. And I'm not talking about, our lead passer threw for 1,624 yards. I'm not talking about somebody, threw the ball 35 times a game and had, 5,000 yards, 4,000 yards, even 3,000 yards. We only had 2,600 as a team. I can't remember, 2,634, I think, something like that. What I'm talking about is we only had 4 interceptions. We had 27 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. We took care of the ball. There were some fumbles, but there weren't any interceptions. And that was something that we're going to, I don't know if we're going to see that, if you come out and you're more 50-50 on your touchdowns to interception ratio, those can lose games. Those can make games that you should win a lot tighter. And it should take some games that you're right there can all of a sudden turn around to where you get blown out by too many interceptions. So because we don't know what we have, again, this is kind of like my everything is new. We just know that it's going to be hard to replicate 27 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. So I've got that as a weakness right now.
Well, that's hard to do. I'm not trying to discredit that. I think it's a very valid point. But that's hard to do at any season. We've seen quarterbacks that have had great touchdown to interception ratios. Again, we'll talk about guys like Byron Leftwich. We'll talk about guys like Rakeem Cato when you talk about that ridiculously efficient touchdown to interception ratio. And we had a great one last year, and that was a big reason that we were able to win tight games. Yeah. Because you were taking care of the football, and you were fighting off a comeback. I mean, and in one case, we weren't able to fight off that comeback. So those will absolutely lose games for you, right? Very valid point. A lot of high efficiency stats, and perhaps the biggest one is touchdown to interception ratio or touchdown to turnover ratio, because there's some fumbles mixed in there too.
Sure.
But still, very valid point. Let's move to the funnest part of the episode. Let's talk about some questions. I want to see how many we get right this week. Curious.
We're not going to match like we did last week.
No, surely not. Surely not. Which is still weird. I have weirdly, oddly thought about that all week long.
Yeah.
I don't know. That just stayed in my brain all week long. Who's the biggest loss from a year ago?
It's Braxton. He was penciled in to be the starter this year before the coaching change. He had those high efficiency stats that we're talking about. He was undefeated when he started the games, and that's just by far the hardest to replace. Now you could say, like Pennington is hard to replace because he's Chad's son and you wanted to see him stay here and all that we said about him already, and hoping that he was going to be the one to take that next leap when he got more reps and things. But the production was Braxton had an opportunity for another year. So he's the hardest to replace.
Yeah. Well, he is the hardest to replace anyway, no matter who you're talking about, because he's the Sun Belt newcomer of the year, right? I mean, that's an of the year, in a really good football conference at a quarterback position. And, I'm sure some people maybe from Southern Miss might be tuning into this episode to see if we're just dogging the quarterbacks that we had a year ago. And I'm not going to do that, because if Braylon Braxton would have decided to stay, everybody in Huntington would have been like, hell yeah, this offense is going to be awesome. Right. So the kid is uberly talented.
I think he would have thrived in this offense. He would have
thrived in this offense, right? Yeah. And I hope that he does down in Hattiesburg, because he could be right here thriving in this Rod Smith offense. He'd have some stiff competition, obviously. Of course, if he stays, we don't know which of the guys actually commit out of the portal. Whole different argument. But I'm not on here to dog former players. Braylon Braxton gave me a lot of excitement last year, won me a lot of football games last year, and brought me, as a Marshall fan, a Conference USA championship that I get to keep forever. So for that, I am appreciative. I'm not angry, like personally angry, that he decided to hit the portal and leave and follow his coach and go to a new team. It sucks that it's a conference mate. It sucks that he could have remained here with several other pieces, and Marshall would have been probably by far the favorite to win the conference again when you only look at the defense that Tony Gibson assembled. You'd be like, man, I don't know. This Marshall team's going to be pretty damn good. But he is the biggest loss. I got nothing bad to say about him. Some of our listeners might be mad at that. I'm not just to trash the kid. He was good quarterback, and I would have enjoyed having him for another year.
Yeah.
Who are you most excited to see here in 2025?
I think this might be my first cop-out of the entire season of these breakdown groups. I can't remember another one. It's probably in special teams. I think that I right off the bat, because there was nobody that we knew.
Yeah.
But most excited to see, it's a tie, and it's Del Rio Wilson and it's Ja'Kai Long. And I think for two different reasons. One is I am most excited to see Ja'Kai continue his ascent and continue to what I don't want to say expect. I don't want to say hope, but what I think might happen is that he gets the keys at some point during this season. So I'm excited to see that, but I'm also excited, since we've signed him, to see Del Rio Wilson, because of all the teams that wanted him out of high school, all the scouting that came from him, and that he hasn't really gotten that fair shake yet to have this opportunity to be the number one guy. So both of that equally excites me.
Mm-hmm. No, that's absolutely a fair point. I think I'm most excited to see. It's not even for me. I'm most excited to see Del Rio Wilson because he came out of high school so highly recruited, the number 16 quarterback overall in his graduating class. Goes to the University of Florida, so there's a massive amount of hype around that. It doesn't work out. He goes to Syracuse, and then he's kind of behind in the depth chart. Then faces an injury. And now he's here looking for a show me season as a redshirt junior. And coaches even said if we had to start a game tomorrow, he would be our coach or he would be our quarterback. All the offseason hype has been largely around him. And it's not just social media hype, it's actual news reporting kind of hype. They're all really talking about Del Rio Wilson. So I think for that reason, I'm most excited to see him because he's been penciled in by damn near everybody, including the ones that make the decisions, to be quarterback one. So I can't choose anybody else. Who do you think is going to be the breakout player this year?
I think it's no surprise it's Ja'Kai Long, and it's no chance last year he redshirts. This year he has a chance. I fully have him as the number 2 right now, and I've already said multiple times that I expect him to get some playing time. So to me, I think he's going to be the breakout, and people are going to say, wow, we had this guy on the roster, and he really is the future, man, So I think he's going to be unequivocally that breakout for me, even though any one of these 3 could break out because they've never really had that chance. Zion Turner is the one that's had the biggest chance, but he got thrust into it due to an injury. I think 5 games or 5 plays into the first game, something crazy that he had to do. So that to me would be Ja'Kai Long in a situation where you can pick anybody and make it make sense.
Yeah, well, it makes sense to me, but my breakout player again is Del Rio Wilson because he's injured all in 2024, has meager career stats to show for this collegiate career up to this point. Now he's faced with this offense and running this offense effectively. If he has any type of notable season, it's going to be a breakout year because he hasn't really done anything to this point. But to have that breakout season, you're talking about something in the area of a 4 to 5x multiplier of what his career numbers are up to this point. That puts you in the realm of about 2,500 to 3,000-ish passing yards, give or take a few hundred, whatever you think is a successful season. And you're talking about another 400 to 600 yards on the ground. That's a phenomenal season. If you end up with 3,000 total yards in this offense, and it's heavily pass. I don't know that he'll have to pass for 2,000 yards, but I'm just saying, if you end up with 1,500 yards passing and 1,000 yards rushing or something like that, that's it. That is a massive breakout season from what you've put up in your career.
Well, I think if anybody does that, that's going to be a breakout in the country. There's not a lot that's going to be rushing for 1,000 out of the behind center.
So, but the other point, the really driver that I'm talking about in this breakout is the stat that you said earlier, which is touchdown to interception ratio. I think you're going to have to see one, and I was going to just say 5 to 1 because everybody can compute that really quickly. But I don't want to see 5 touchdowns. I think you're going to need to see a 20 to 4 touchdown to interception ratio because I want to see some numbers get lit up on the scoreboard, right? That's what this offense is all about. And if you do those kind of things, that equates to me to a breakout year. Ja'Kai Long can have a great season in backup duty and in mop-up duty and all that kind of stuff, and that would be considered a little bit of a breakout because he's got no stats, no action whatsoever. But I think your QB1, if he puts together a solid season, another Sunbelt newcomer of the year type season or better, he's your breakout player. Who's your MVP in this one?
It's Del Rio Wilson. Right now, he's the number 1. No matter what may happen the rest of the year, I think right now he's got the biggest chance to have the bulk of the snaps. And I think that he has to be the MVP. If we have a situation barring an injury where we're even Steven on attempts and everything, it's going to be extremely hard to have either of them be the MVP of the offense. So I'm putting that on Del Rio Wilson, that he'll get the bulk and he'll he'll be our MVP.
My MVP is the guy that you just said. It's whoever gets the bulk of the snaps for the season.
It really is.
I mean, you be in a situation to where something catastrophic could happen a quarter into the season, and then it's somebody completely different. So I can't really pencil it on one guy. It's going to have to be whoever gets the bulk of the snaps for the season. Because if whoever it is has 80% of the snaps and has a really terrible year, it's going to be a long season for us. Unless we really got some studs in the running back room. Who is your sleeper pick for 2025?
It's Zion Turner, and you cannot sleep on this guy because we have talked about Ja'Kai Long in our minds, passing him for second on the depth chart. He could still come in with injury or just with play that relegates him up. I really think that he is going to be good in this offense. He definitely knows this offense. He had the leg up on knowing this offense. So cannot sleep on him. He's my sleeper.
My sleeper pick's Ja'Kai Long because all last season he did not enter a game whatsoever, despite new redshirt rules allowing you to appear in 4 games and retain that redshirt eligibility. There was opportunities to get him into a game, and Huff did not do it for whatever reason. I'm not questioning why. I'm just saying it didn't happen. And now this year we're talking about the development, the rise, solidifying in our eyes that QB2 spot right now. We think he'll be pushing for QB1 at some point in the season. But all the way back in the spring when I was building the hype around, hey, the guy's still here, don't just crown transfers. We got a guy that is still here. He's got to be the sleeper pick for me. I mean, he doesn't have to be for you. But for me, he's got to be, because he's not appeared in any games, to go from no action to competing with 2 starters and experienced quarterbacks at this level to, in our eyes, solidifying that number 2 spot. He's already well on his way to knocking the ball out of the park with sleeper status. Now it's just a matter of getting into the game and making some plays and leading the herd to some wins. But I love his story so far, and I think, man, if he just stays in Kelly green and white, we could be in really, really good position for the next number of years. He's a special player. Biggest question of the night, and the last question of the night: are we better in 2025 than we were in 2024?
Yes, and we are. From what you said early in this episode, it was because 1, 2, and 3 are better than 1, 2, and 3 last year. They fit the system better and all that. I'm not saying we are better in touchdown to interception ratio. I'm not saying that we're going to be better at passing yards or any kind of stats that you can qualify. I am just saying that our 3 quarterbacks that could equally go in and start and run this offense well, I think we are better in the QB room than we were last year.
I think we might be. And it felt very top heavy last year. I still question why it took so long for Braylon Braxton to get the keys to the vehicle and drive the offense. I mean, we heard why coach thought that was. I think that's inaccurate, be honest with you.
I think that makes for a good soundbite now after the fact.
I think that it's like, hey, this was my plan all along. Look how it worked. And that was not the plan all along. I don't care what they say. No shade, but it is kind of shade. We were here watching as we're Herd fans, and was everybody clamoring for, like, what are we doing here? We've got this guy that can move this offense. And
well, you don't save, and you don't say that you're saving for conference play and do that what you did at App State and play him because that wasn't what was said at the time. It was, well, Stone Earl had an injury and it was to his ankle. I mean, it was kind of out there but not out there. And then the very next game, if you were saving him, why didn't you start him on the road at Georgia Southern? It's because you thought he was number 2, that he was clearly capable to run a different style of offense. And let's be honest, Braylon Braxton did not throw the ball past 5 yards in that App State game. It was like a quick throw here that went for a touchdown. It was runs. He did great, but it wasn't that he was throwing the ball downfield like Stone Earl was.
Mm-hmm.
It was just different. So he went back to Stone Earl. That was not the reason, and I would tell Coach if he would get back on our show, I would put him to task for that and say, I highly disagree. Otherwise, why did you do this?
Well, every Herd fan that heard that called bullshit on it immediately.
Yeah.
We're like, no, that ain't what happened. But whatever sells tickets in Hattiesburg. Hey, you do you, man. You're not in Huntington anymore. You do you. I'm not mad at you. I just don't believe that.
I just don't believe it either.
But I do think we are better as a unit. 1, 2, and 3 are built to run this particular offense really, really well. And you had conflicting styles of play last year in that offense. And it showed, and this year it may show. It might. You might have 3 guys that are built to run this offense and still not be able to do it, right? We don't know. We haven't seen it yet. But on paper, the way I think I see what I'm seeing, the way I deduce and am digesting that information, I think as a whole, we are a better unit this year than last year. We just have to wait and see. Kickoff's coming up really soon. The position group breakdown series is so fun to do. It is so much work to prepare and bring to you guys, but I absolutely love doing it. The only thing left for us to do now is some season predictions, which you're going to get next week. We're going to go up and down that schedule and talk about our ceiling, our floor, the games that we might see as trap games, where they might get hung up, where the stranglehold of the season falls, where the season might be won or lost, all of it in next week's season predictions episode. Russ, if you got anything else, let me have it. Otherwise, let's get out of here.
Very, very quickly, I just want to say we have been bringing a lot of content, and it's been sometimes 3 episodes a week, sometimes 4. I think we did this week, Sunday through Friday now. We're very blessed with the sponsors that we have, and we want to thank them again real quick. Leasure Oliver PLLC has been here since what we call day 0, and they're our title sponsor. But Jed and the guys at Ignite.link, with everything that they've done, Jed's other business at Layer 1, and then all of our tailgate sponsors, all of our other sponsors that we have throughout the year for the website and for different things, we're able to bring this content to you, the listeners, to you, the viewers, thanks to them. So it's a lot of work on our end and everything to bring this content to you, but they want us to have a good show for you guys. So show them the love back if you can use them. Yeah. And with that, I'll say, whether you see us at the Joan, whether you see us at the Cam, or whether you see us at the Vet, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. Thank you guys for tuning in to every single episode. If you happen to miss one, they're all over on the ThunderCast YouTube channel. You can catch up on every single position group. It's season prediction next week, and then we're going to look to preview a week 1 game. Football season is finally upon us. It's the ThunderCast. We'll see you next week. Later.